It's customary to begin Na'ilah by singing the famous piyut El Nora Alila. It's important to note that the tune for El Nora Alila is not the same tune as the Pizmon Mepi'el. There's a voice note attached to this video with El Nora Alila being sung the Halabi way. Hakam Salim Za'afrani documented the customs of the great synagogue of Aleppo in the first half of the 20th century. In his notes he wrote that they sang the piyut Hon Ta'on before the Amidah and Na'ilah. This was also recorded by Hakam Yosef Abadi Shayo in his book on the customs of Aleppo. However, the book Derech Eretz noted that in later times they did not sing Hon Ta'on and Na'ilah in Halab. Furthermore, Hakam Yosef Abadi Shayo wrote that they sang Et Sha'arei Ratzon before singing El Nora Alila. Now in our community, Et Sha'arei Ratzon is sung at the beginning of Mincha on Yom Kippur, and Hon Ta'on is sung on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. One of the notable customs in Na'ilah is that the Kohanim wash their hands with orange blossom water before reciting Birkat Kohanim. This was recorded as the custom in Halab in the book Derech Eretz. I've heard that the reason for this custom is so that the fragrance will rejuvenate the Kohanim as they might feel faint towards the end of the fast day, and this will help them recite the priestly blessing with greater concentration and a stronger feeling of love. The book Keter Shem Tov recorded the custom of the Kohanim washing with fragrant water on Yom Kippur as a custom in the land of Israel and in Egypt. And he also wrote that women who had difficulty getting pregnant donated the fragrant water for the Kohanim to wash their hands with, and then after the fast, they would drink from that water and believe that it would help them get pregnant and have a child. In Damascus, it was customary to use orange blossom water or rose water. The Kohanim would wash their hands with this water over a bowl, and then the water that was left over in the bowl was used to cure aches and pains. Interestingly, some Ashkenazic authorities discuss a custom of Kohanim washing their hands with fragrant water on Yom Tov, and several authorities objected to the custom as they considered it a violation of the prohibition of being molid reyah, creating a fragrance, so to speak. But there are Middle Eastern authorities who permitted it, such as Rabbi Abraham Halevi in his book Ginat Beradim. He lived in Egypt during the 17th century, and the Haidam in his book Birkei Yosef in the 18th century. They wrote that one should not mix the fragrance in water on Shabbat or Yom Tov, but if it was mixed before Shabbat, they can wash with it on Shabbat and Yom Tov. Similarly, Hakam Abraham Antebi wrote in his book Chokhmah Musar that in Halab it was customary to sprinkle rose water on each other on Simchat Torah, or when there was a groom or a father of a new baby boy on Shabbat, or even when visiting friends and relatives on Shabbat and Yom Tov, and that they relied on the authorities that permitted this. And the book Keter Shem Tov wrote that in the famous Kabbalistic synagogue Beit El in Jerusalem, rose water was given to the rabbis, which they rubbed on their hands, faces, and beards on Simchat Torah, and also on Shabbat, when celebrating with a groom or the father of a new baby boy. There's also a difference of opinion about whether the Kohanim only wash their fingers on Yom Kippur, like everyone does on Kippur when waking up in the morning or after using the bathroom, or if they wash their entire hands before reciting Birkat Kohanim. Hakam Leon Gindi told me that they wash their entire hands. Hakam Yosef Abadi Shayo wrote that the Hechal is left open during Na'ilah until after the Hazara. Here in our community, it is left open until the end of the entire Na'ilah prayer. Hakam Yosef Shayo does not mention anything about going up to the Hechal to recite personal prayers during Na'ilah, but he did mention that custom for after Arbit on the night of Yom Kippur. He wrote that in the great synagogue of Aleppo, they would enter one of 7 small rooms where they stored the Sifrei Torah. Each room had between 20 and 30 Sifrei Torah. They would enter barefoot and kiss the Sifrei Torah, and then make personal requests from Hashem. Now, even though the old Mahzurim have B'dil V'Ya'abor in Na'ilah, like in the other prayers for Yom Kippur, the custom has developed to answer Amen instead of B'dil V'Ya'abor in Na'ilah. This was a custom in both Aleppo and Damascus, and in Egypt as well. Furthermore, the book by Ikra Abraham documented this as the custom of the northern Israeli city, Safed. There's another custom, which is particular to Halab, and that's the loud recitation of the verse from Tehillim, that begins with the word Eshme'a. In Mahzor Aram Soba, which was printed in the year 1527, the Hazan recited the entire verse at the end of each prayer before Kaddish Kabal on both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The book Derech Eretz wrote that in more recent times, in the great synagogue of Aleppo, it was recited before Kaddish Kabal in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah and before Kaddish Kabal in every prayer on Yom Kippur. In the synagogue Beit Nasi, they also recited it before the Amidah in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. But eventually, it was only said before Kaddish Kabal in Na'ilah on Yom Kippur. The book Derech Eretz quoted Rakam Ishaq Za'afrani alav shalom, who said that someone with a strong voice recited the first part of the verse, Eshme'a me'yedaber ha'el Adonai, and then the congregation answered the continuation of the verse, Ki yedaber shalom el amo ve'el hasidav v'al yashubu l'chisla. And then the Hazan repeated the first part of the verse again, and the congregation again responded with the continuation of the verse. But eventually, the custom changed, and the congregation answered by repeating the first part of the verse again. So the Hazan said it, and the congregation repeated it. This was done 2 times. Here in our community, some still practice this custom at the end of the Na'ilah prayer. The beginning of the verse is recited and repeated by the congregation. This is done 2 times in a loud voice right before Kaddish Kabal.